And when you were in your 20s, you also made a presentation to the then Prime Minister, Mr. Narasimha Rao, on all things technology.
I think we would have evolved very differently if we as humanity thought of exploring science for the betterment of humanity, for our well-being. Today we sit here with air purifiers. The air is so polluted, so there's a global catastrophe happening on a level that is unimaginable. Times we used to wonder why we buy water, because you get bottled water, and water is available free by nature. The Macaulay system of education, which really essentially brainwashed the Indians to follow the Western style of learning. So the West sort of taught us to amalgate with the world. It also made many success stories overseas. Dad said, "Mala colleges suru karechit, me karnar," and people used to laugh at him. And Dad always took up challenges because he said that you should develop in an area which is not developed. When I gave the contract to the contractor, he said, "How do I reach the site? There is no road." So I said, "Make the road." And we literally made the road. That road still exists. It's a 2-track road which still the people use there. It's a small road now, but that road still exists. And you talk about inspiring leaders. I met a lot of industrialists. I especially remember when I met Dhirubhai Ambani ji. And he was extremely inspiring, the way he spoke and the way. So these kind of leaders inspire you. So as a young man, I always used to feel that I should shake hands with big people.
Thank you so much, Ajeenkya, for being here today and giving us your time. एक मिर्ज़ा गालिब का एक शेर है कि पूछते हैं वो कि गालिब कौन है, कोई बतलाओ कि हम बतलाएं क्या. तो उसी शेर से मुझे ये कहना है कि Ajeenkya Patil needs no introduction, especially in a state like Maharashtra where everyone knows of the D.Y. Patil group, of the amazing work that you all have done over the years, of the Ajeenkya D.Y. Patil University, and so many different schools and colleges that you all run across the country. It's an absolute pleasure having you today at Living Legacies.
Thank you, Shaurya.
How are you doing?
Everyone needs an introduction. I'm doing good, Shaurya. Thank you. But very kind of you to introduce me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jumping straight into it,
sure.
The meat of things. What I've come to know through my sources is you never chose, or your natural liking was never towards being an educator, but deep down there is a scientist in you. And I have, inside intel on how when you were in the 4th grade, you developed a transistor radio. In the 9th grade, you developed a remote control car. When you were in the 10th grade, wireless transmitters or the wireless telephone services. And you also developed a 16-foot satellite transmission device so that you could see CNN when they started satellite transmission. And when you were in your 20s, you also made a presentation to the then Prime Minister, Mr. Narasimha Rao, on all things technology. Are all these intels true?
Yeah, so I think I'll have to let my age out for that, because it seems like I've forgotten about all these issues. So so you've done your homework, Shaurya. You're quite right. I never wanted to be a traditional businessman or an educationist, or I really wanted to be a scientist, and that science is still in my DNA. So perhaps at some point of my life, I'll still continue with that pursuit which I had as a young man. And you're right, I was very tech inclined, and technology has almost become like a pervading part of our lives today. But in those days, technology didn't exist. It was virtually non-existent. And of course, we didn't have access to the markets like we do have today. We didn't have communication channels which we have today. And perhaps nobody understood what really I wanted to do. And at times I do regret feeling a bit disappointed that I could not pursue my dream of becoming a scientist. So you touched on a very raw nerve. Yeah.
But tell me, at that point when you wanted to do all of these things,
Right.
Why didn't you?
So I wanted to do all these things, but the environment was not conducive because people didn't take you seriously. Neither did my parents understand that what I was pursuing, because they just thought, here's this young man talking about technology and talking about science and space and communications. They really didn't understand what I was talking about. They thought it's every child's aspiration to become an astronaut, and it could be one of his aspirations and he'll grow out of it. But sometimes you're intrinsically built in to understand these explorations, which really you don't understand why they come to you, but you feel that you've been inspired from somewhere, whether it's watching some things on televisions, be it like Star Trek. When I grew up, I watched Star Trek, or your interest in astrology, astronomy, and there is so much amazement in nature and there's so much abundance in nature, yet we pursue all our pursuits, divesting everything that is available so much in plenty. Talking of perpetual power, or whether it's oil that runs the engines or the economy. So there's so much that can be done, and I think we would have evolved very differently if we as humanity thought of exploring science for the betterment of humanity, for our well-being. Today we sit here with air purifiers. The air is so polluted, so there's a global catastrophe happening on a level that is unimaginable. So at times we used to wonder why we buy water, because you get bottled water, and water is available free by nature. But we buy water, and sooner time has come now we have to recycle our air, so we are buying our air. So that we've reached that stage as well. So I feel we need to really look at a different trajectory on development, how we evolve as a species. And perhaps after chaos comes peace. So we are at that chaotic stage of exploration, and only when there's extreme chaos, then we'll become aware of what reality is. COVID was a good example of that. COVID put us to a standstill and made us realize that our existence can be stopped completely just by a microorganism which is can only be seen through a microscope, but that little organism put the whole world to a stop. So it's time to introspect, time to rethink our strategies as humans. It's just not about driving business, but about becoming a happier place, a happier planet, and caring for the environment, really. So that's how I was driven in my initial years. I'm still driven like that, but at times I feel that what can one man do? So I'm sure there are thousands like me, if not millions, but we in our little way can create impact.
Sure. Why do you think mankind took that turn, and why didn't we focus on something that, as you said, can help the entire race?
So Shri, I don't have answers to everything that has happened in the evolution of our history, but I feel it's purely for profits.
Okay.
And we are driven purely by profits. We are brought up in a system where our purpose is to achieve profits, to succeed in life, and to become extremely successful at whatever the cost it may incur. And I think that needs to change. Of course, in the past couple of years or the last decade, you've seen a fundamental shift in the way even governments are thinking. They go back to the ethos of our old Indian traditional systems. And I wouldn't say they're old Indian traditional systems, I would say they're advanced Indian sciences, which we look at, whether it's our religious scriptures, whether it's our Vedas, whether it's our way of really living life, the Indian way of living life. And I think if we really look at how our ancestors lived, perhaps they were more modern, more civilized, and more advanced than what we are today. We might hide under the garb of technology, but the real way of living in harmony with nature was there in our ancestors. And I think we need to go back to those roots, because we are exposed to so much technology today, and I think we can make good use of technology to go back to our roots And really, that's the proper way of living. And even in corporations, I think through the educational system or by our behavior of emulation, we can become examples. Even in the educational system, I think we need to change a lot, where we may need to make people aware that the education that you took for so many years is not the only education that you should be aware of. In India, education is known as shikshan. Shikshan का मतलब वही होता है, learning at every moment. It's not just about achieving a degree and then looking for a job. So I don't have answers to everything, but somewhere a small beginning has to be made. And there are many people working in that direction, but they're the silent heroes who are working in the background. And a time will come where there will be a revival of this super culture and super advancement that we had, where happiness will be the quotient and not just success and money.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, through that conversation, what I realized is there is a spiritual side to you. There is a side that understands the Vedas. You've read a lot about Indian history. Where did this side come from, the side of spirituality?
So understanding the Vedas, I don't know again, because I'm not an expert on the Vedas. I was educated in a Western manner, and I wish I had learned Sanskrit. So my only grouse with my mother, she's no more, and may her soul rest in peace, is that why didn't you teach me Sanskrit? And she always used to argue with me, saying that everyone wanted their child to be convent educated. Everyone wanted their child to go overseas, have an MBA, come back, and I thought you'd be proud of the education I gave you. So I said, I'm extremely proud of the education that you gave me, and I'm humbled by the work that you put in to do what you did for me. But what we forgot is what we were taught for generations. And I think I'll go back a little bit into history. This may be veering off from the topic. It's the Macaulay system of education, which really essentially brainwashed the Indians to follow the Western style of learning. So the West sort of taught us to amalgamate with the world. It also made many success stories overseas, but that it also meant that it wiped out our existing system of learning, which was extremely important, crucial, and scientific. So I believe that if the British would have sort of allowed us to continue with our existing system, we would have been a greater nation. But I believe that was not their goal. Their goal was to completely eliminate the Indian system of education and sort of enslave us to the teachings of the West. Whether they believed it was right or wrong, that's a debatable issue. But I certainly believe it was not right.
Sure.
And to answer your question, I think I got it from my father, I got it from my mother. My mother was a Sanskrit scholar, so she was a deeply religious and spiritual person. So is my father. My father believes everything that he does in the name of God, and that service to humanity, service to God. And so he's a very deeply spiritual man. So he never is worried or concerned about what kind of wealth he generates or creates, but rather what change or impact he can have on society. So I think that's ingrained from within the family, really. So it's my father and mother, just. And because they kept the company of many gurus, many great saints, many spiritual leaders, I used to accompany them as a young man. I was never interested, because I used to feel these temple visits and listening to pravachans and all these holy men was a waste of time. As a young man, of course, you want to eat your ice cream and go to parks and go in the giant wheel. But it was imposed on me, and rightly so, because today I value what they imposed on me. So I think that teaching comes from deep within my family.
Sure.
Yeah.
And do you think it helps you today, when there are ups and downs and so many things that happen? Does this spiritual side to you, is it helpful? Does it?
So it definitely helps you, because it makes you very resilient. It also gives you a feeling that you're a very temporary sort of a phenomena, because life itself is a short phenomena. You come and you go. So it's what you do within those few moments. I call it few moments. People may call it 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, but I call it a few moments. So it definitely grounds you, because you feel that you've come to sort of play your role in this world. And ups and downs, I call life a video game. Play it well. So every video game has a high, every video game has a low. Sometimes you score high, sometimes you score low. And I would put the analogy of night and day.
Okay.
Night is followed by day, day is followed by night. Some days are longer, some nights are longer. So similarly, the ups and downs of lives are a trough where sometimes your highs are very high and sometimes your lows are very low. So you have to go with the flow really. Life is not perfect. And if it becomes perfect, then probably you achieved spirituality to a level where you would achieve moksha and you would become a saint. But to live in this world, to work, to operate, I think you have to detach yourself from the result of success or pursuits. You have to just keep on working in the pursuit of success, but detach yourself from the fruits of that success. And the Gita teaches this. Many of our old literature teaches us this. So it's a very simple philosophy, easy to digest. I don't know why we find it so difficult to understand. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I took away from what you just said is this pursuit of the journey and detaching yourself from the outcomes to an extent that you can. I mean, obviously, successes, failures will impact you, but you come back and you say that this is the journey that I'm on.
Right.
And that brings me to a very important topic of your journey, where you grew in a household where there is this really powerful father figure who's revered across. He was the governor of Tripura, he was the governor of Bihar, and he's also a Padma Shri awardee. He is, a legendary educator. And to live in that sort of household under that legacy of his, I'm sure it can be very difficult because you're always compared. You're always there's always this sort of shadow of your father on you. How do you deal with it? How did you deal with it? How was that process like?
So that's a very interesting question you ask, because often society makes opinions about you based on the family that you're born in. And by virtue of my birth in this lovely family and the loving and kind man that my father is, I'm truly blessed. But the things that you just said put also a lot of pressure on me, because you said so many good things about him. So naturally, as a child or as a son, to fill in his shoes is very difficult. So I always thought that I should do something on my own and I should break away from the identity of my father. And I had that self pride, as a young man, that I can do better than him and stuff like that. Because you're always hearing wherever you go, D.Y. Patil's son is here, and you will continue to be his son. One day I sat with my dad. We had these very heart-to-heart conversations, which was very rare because he was a very tough guy. He still is a tough guy. Unfortunately, he's a bit old now, so he's not as tough as he used to be, but a very gentle person. And so he used to say that today you are known as my son, but the day I will be known as your father will be the proudest moment of my life. And those words sort of inspired me, because I said it's very difficult to fill in your shoes, the kind of things that you've done. So he's saying, no, you continue. There's no need. So he never had that feeling of superiority. In fact, he always encouraged us. And for a couple of years, I tried that I'll build an identity of my own. And in fact, part of that was the Ajeenkya D.Y. Patil group, because I wanted to create a legacy which was unique to me. And after a certain point, I realized that my family has worked very hard. This includes my father, my grandfather, and they have spent their lifetimes creating this legacy and this journey. Why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? So that's when I came to a realization that if you're born in a family which has already created a legacy, which is working for the greater good, it's just not about business, but their whole overall outlook to life is the betterment of society, humanity, I can add to that. So if my father is dedicated, say, 70 or 50 years of his life, his father has dedicated 50 years, so that's 100 plus years of legacy. So why am I restarting the wheel? I could start at 150 and continue to be 200, and I hope my children do that. I imbibe that feeling in them. If they wish to, they should. If they don't, that's their life. There's no sort of force on them. But I came to a realization very late in life that it's important to understand that what your family does. So it's not about filling someone's shoes. It's barely continuing what he did. and I think I'm continuing to do what he did. And I realized that there's extreme hard work, there's patience, there's perseverance, there's dedication, there's commitment. I would not have enough adverbs to sort of explain what he went through, because I have some of his diaries which I read, and during the founding years when he established these, and it's hard work, pure hard work. And he just had this burning desire that I want to educate people, I want to build universities. He didn't worry about profits, he didn't worry about how he'll build the infrastructure. He just said, I want to educate people. And his intention was to educate people at a low cost. Not many people know of this.
Okay.
So it was education available to all in plenty, and at a subsidized cost. That was his desire. So he always told me that I was not able to achieve it in my lifetime, and I would imagine that you would do it in your lifetime. If you're not able to do it in your lifetime, your children should do it in their lifetime. So that's the kind of vision this man has for the state of Maharashtra. Of course, now he's grown internationally, locally, but it started essentially with educating the rural masses of Maharashtra, which he felt that he never could do. Because again, our educational institutes were concentrated only in the cities because of lack of teachers, infrastructures. There were various reasons. But his dream was always that poor people should get education, people from the rural area should get education, and people should have access to education. So these are ingrained in us, so we try our best to get the outreach. Now, of course, with technology, you can do that. With technology, education can be available to different parts of the country where infrastructure is not available, but your television can reach them, or in this case, the computer monitor or a tablet. So times are changing. So there's a dream someone sees. He may not fulfill that dream, but that dream definitely gets fulfilled if those thoughts are ingrained in the next generation. So I'm not trying to fill his shoes. I'm merely trying to continue a legacy, a dream that he started, and hopefully I'll be able to contribute to what he started.
That's amazing to listen to. And, linking it back to the deeper purpose, where we just spoke about that you're here in this world and there's a purpose. So do you think that this legacy that he sort of had a vision for and he's passed it on to you, has this now become one of your primary purposes of life to take this forward?
Yeah, so I think as an organization, we've evolved greatly, because we didn't start in any professional manner where we had the top consultants or a focused sort of a strategy to grow. It automatically grew. Dad said, "Mala colleges suru karaychit, me karnar." And people used to laugh at him. People like professors, teachers, all the academics especially, ये गाँव का आदमी क्या करेगा, इसको एजुकेशन का कुछ मालूम नहीं और इसको कॉलेज खोलना है. So they literally used to laugh at him. That was the kind of treatment he used to get, including recruitment of teachers. Because teachers also used to feel that how can I be associated with a private organization. So there were a lot of challenges, but now I think it's changed. Not only for us, if you see the education sector as such, it's professionalized. There's a lot of good talent in the system. And our institutes are pretty much run in automatic mode. We don't look after day-to-day management. So now, of course, there's a very focused strategy to grow, evolve, but there are teams working on it. There are group leaders working on it. And we have some really intelligent, smart, wise, and beautiful people who work for this organization, and they continue to grow and evolve. But the core of it all remains that we are one big family. So I would imagine that every member of my team would be happy to be part of the Patil family. That's what I refer to as my team. I don't call them staff, whether it's the sweepers, the cleaners, the drivers, or even the top management guys. So we all feel that we are one organization. Every individual has a role to play, and because of each and every individual, these organizations grow. So if any one part of your organization or its people are exploited, whether it's the non-teaching staff, teaching staff, or even the labor contractors who come to construct our buildings, every time a project is done, I say that let's take pictures of these individuals and wall them on our projects, because once they construct this office you're seeing in, there were carpenters, painters, they're all gone. And they are never sort of appreciated. But these are the people who really make you. So appreciation and inclusion is very important. And And I think we continue to grow because of that. We take people from the lower strata of working, right? From a peon level, he can grow up to be a director in our company. So there are many success stories like that, and we continue to evolve. So as an organization, we are growing. So it is very much a part of my. I mean, I started off as a scientist, but we've created many more scientists, we've created many more doctors, we've created many more engineers. So what I could have perhaps done single-handedly, maybe now thousands are doing. So in a way, also my dream is getting fulfilled because me not being a scientist, but me creating scientists, or us creating, I should not use the word me, us creating educated people is also meaningfully useful to nation building and to the world at large.
This brings me to a very interesting chapter of your life, which is where you got this sort of legacy of your father with the D.Y. Patil group, but you were just not satisfied, or you had more fire within you, and you went on to create the Ajeenkya D.Y. Patil group, the Ajeenkya D.Y. Patil University, and now it's expanding, growing beautifully. Can you take me through that journey? The initial challenges of starting on your own, starting from scratch, building a university. What goes on, at a deeper level there?
So I have always wanted to focus on quality. Quality is something that is of paramount importance to me. I also wanted to differentiate myself from everyone else, the vision that I had, because speaking about it is one thing, but doing something is really putting your thoughts and words in action. And that's what I want to do. I never have a habit of speaking and then doing. I have a habit of doing and then speaking. So the seeds of the university were planted in my thought many, many years ago. I worked diligently, quietly in the background. So we identified a land parcel in Pune, which was barren land really. There were no roads, there was no power, there was no water, there was no infrastructure. And that's where my father and me decided that we'll start this university here. And dad always took up challenges because he said that you should develop in an area which is not developed. Because of the university, there is a lot of peripheral development that comes around, whether it's the canteens, the shops, or the infrastructure that's needed to cater to the students of the university. So the university becomes an epicenter of development around that area. So obviously it was a challenging time in terms of infrastructure, and very little support comes to you as an entrepreneur when you really start. And those times were different. Today perhaps the times are different because now entrepreneurs are getting a lot of support. But even the challenge of getting a PowerPoint to your, because if you're putting in an investment of 500 crores, 1000 crores, the least you expect is a PowerPoint and a water connection and a road to reach the site. But those weren't existent. So it only because of some inspiring leaders who took up the call only on meeting them personally that I was able to sort of go into these areas. But it was a lot of hard work. So when I gave the contract to the contractor, he said, how do I reach the site? There is no road. So I said, make the road. And we literally made the road. That road still exists. It's a 2-track road which still the people use there. It's a small road now, but that road still exists. So that essentially became the artery to connect that area. There was no water supply, so we had to get water from about 14 kilometers away. So we literally pulled the pipeline to get the water supply. There was no electrical supply, so we had to again drive electrical points about 9 kilometers to get it to that area. So that's just the infrastructure. Of course, the challenges of regulations are another story because, like you said, being D.Y. Patil's son doesn't get you things easily done, as people may imagine, because there was a struggle to get these permissions, the inspections, and India has a very rigorous system of checks and balances, in spite of people what they imagine that being from a family which has influence or has connections, things get done easily. It's not the case.
Okay.
Unless you comply fully, then and only then can you start these kind of institutions. And if you wish to take shortcuts, it's a short lifespan which is not sustainable. So I wouldn't even take that route or even advise that route. So something that needs to grow and becomes a perpetual machine of sort of perpetuity it continues in. You need to have a solid foundation. That foundation can't be on a weak wicket. So you need to put the systems and processes in place. You need to put the infrastructure in place. You need to put people in place. You need to put the paperwork in place. So there are a lot of stakeholders that need to come together. So the building the project is not as much as a challenge as much as getting the stakeholders together. Because to talk to different organs of the government, to talk to the local villagers, to talk to the panchayats, to get them also bored, because sometimes people look at you as a predator who's come and trying to sort of destroy the environment. And so it was very challenging. In fact, I went through a lot of emotional turmoil during that period. I put on a lot of weight that time. And but it was fun, because what is life without a little hard work? Or if you got everything easily, or if you get everything very easily, there's no fun in life. So in my case, I've not got anything easily. There is seldom that I've got something very easily. I always had to work hard for it. And perhaps that made me understand the value of life. You can't take things for granted. So in a sense, I think nature also has a way of sort of tuning you that this is your role in life and this is what you will do. So I work very hard, and there were plenty of challenges, but I was very happy because that time the Chief Minister was Devendra Fadnavis. And I would like to offer my gratitude in this video, because I didn't know him personally. And my university had to be legislated through the assembly. And of course, there are many other leaders also who helped, but I can't name everyone. And he took the leadership in giving permission for this university. And I went to thank him, and I expressed to him that thank you for helping me, and you did such a big thing. And he said, your work was on merit, I did it, what is there to thank me? So that says a lot about a leadership ability, and that inspired me. Not only it inspired me, it made me emotional. In fact, I had tears of joy. That here is a leader who's sort of going out of their way to help an individual who doesn't know. Perhaps he's heard of people, he's heard of my father, he knows my father, but I have not personally interacted with him. So I'm extremely grateful, and there are many such inspiring leaders who I've come across. But he's instrumental in the establishment of this university. There's Vinod Tawde, who was the education minister that time. And I can't forget the gratitude of these people, because these are the foundations that build you. And you should not forget who help you in life. So these are your foundation pillars. So it was tough, a lot of hard work, but we got there. It took almost 3 years since the application till we got through. And almost 5 to 7 years in planning. And of course, the dream was there for many, many years, but I just didn't have the courage to go ahead and do it. And eventually I did it.
Or what was that switch inside that gave you the courage to take this decision? Because as you said, काफी time तक वो एक fire था, एक dream था. तो वो switch from ideation to creation. Do you remember what was the frame like? Emotionally, mentally, or what made you finally take that courageous step?
I don't know if it's courageous or there was a flip or something. As a young man only I wanted to do this. So there was that burning desire to kuch karna hai, kuch karna hai, kuch karna hai, kuch karna hai. And even as a child, like when I was 11, 12 years old, I used to look into the sea. We were opposite the Arabian Sea, just to stay near Pedder Road, and I used to look into the sea and imagine, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to change humanity, I'm going to change the planet, and all these were just ingrained. And if you have a dream, it comes true. You just have to have that burning desire. So there's that book called The Secret. I don't know if you've read it. Perhaps not so popular now, but
Law of Attraction.
Yeah. So when I was doing all these things, I digested that book very well. And I think that book is, in a very concise way, tells you that if you constantly think of something and make it a mantra, that I want to do this, I want to do this, without thinking of any negativity around that, you achieve that. And that's how I was always dreaming of doing this. I was always thinking of doing this. I was always imagining doing this. And you talk about inspiring leaders. I met a lot of industrialists. I especially remember when I met Dhirubhai Ambani ji. He was extremely inspiring, the way he spoke and the way. So these kind of leaders inspire you. So as a young man, I always used to feel that I should shake hands with big people. So I used to meet presidents, prime ministers, and just for the heck of it, take pictures with them. Because I also feel that you're surrounded in an energy field when you're with successful individuals who are positive minded. So you always pick up things from people. You may pick up bad things also from people. I'm not saying only the positive part, but there's always some learning that happens when you meet people who are successful. So the idea is to observe people, and I observed a lot of people. I observed a lot of successful people.
Okay.
So I don't know if there was a tipping point, but a series of meetings with people, and also my father. I looked at him, the way he was working.
Sure.
So that sort of inspired me. So there was no real tipping point as such, but it just happened organically.
You know, what I would sort of take away from this is, number one is the power of visualization, imagination, and dreaming about something.
Absolutely.
You know, because even I've read The Secret, and they constantly talk about the law of attraction, where you keep thinking, you think about one thing positively, don't let any other thoughts come in your way.
Correct.
So I think that is something that can really help all, the youngsters who are watching this. Is if you have a dream, keep dreaming about it, keep thinking about it. The power of visualizing that for yourself.
Correct.
And the second, important takeaway for me personally was, surround yourself, or try and surround yourself with successful people. Observe, that was something that was very interesting, where you said that you were constantly trying to observe,
Yes, I was.
their body language, the energy, what they were doing.
Right.
And that really sort of, as you said, helped you
Yeah.
through that phase. So I think that were, very, insightful takeaways from there.
Interesting you're saying that now. Yeah, because I'm doing some now deep diving and thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another interesting kissa of, your meetings with so many prime ministers, presidents, and even, when I stepped into your office, I saw this beautiful picture with Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji that you had kept, at your desk. Can you share some insights of that meeting and how that was like?
So he's a very inspiring leader, and he's just not inspiring to people who meet him, but also to people who don't meet him. Because I think never in the history of India have we had, at least in my lifetime, I've not seen such an inspiring leader who emulates, who motivates, and who has a burning desire to change the country to take it to a different trajectory. We are seeing that on the ground in terms of the economy developing. And again, dreaming, because you're dreaming of a 5 trillion economy, you're dreaming of a 10 trillion economy. Unless you have a benchmark, you have an objective, you have a goal, you'll never reach it. So I think it very clearly defines the vision, the goal, and the success for your nation. Nation building is very important. The identity of a nation is very important. And I think he's asserting it in very clear manners that this is what we are, this is how we will be, and this is what we were. So he's very inspiring. I met him when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat many years ago, and he gave me time, and we spent a good part of our time discussing everything except politics.
Okay.
And I was quite young because he's a very important person. So to give me so much time by itself made me aware that he's a unique personality, because people would call you, people would talk to you, and people let you go. But he was engaged in that conversation, and I was the only one in the room. And when you're engaged and you actually hear someone listening to your thoughts, you feel very sort of emotional, because here is a powerful individual listening to your thoughts, who's understanding what you're saying, and who has a deep sense of, okay, what the other individual is saying makes sense. So we had a very good, interesting conversation. But the best part of that learning was every conversation that I had, whether it was on technology, whether it was on space, whether it was on solar, whether it was on trains, he either had implemented it, he had done it, or he knew about it. And in fact, he spoke on topics which even people younger than me would not know. So the intelligence level of that individual is something which fascinated me, because I went with a sense of, okay, I'm Western educated, I know, and let me give some ideas and exchange. And so you also have a feeling that you know a few things, but when you go, you sort of come back with a understanding that this person is ahead of the curve. So he can relate to someone who's 20 years old, and he can relate to someone who's 80 years old. He can relate to the man on the street, he can relate to the industrialist in the industry. So that's the kind of character of this leader. So you come back very empowered, feeling that these are the kind of people who should lead the country. And literally, and this was when things were like technology, the internet, everything. So he was ahead of the curve. We've done this covering of the rivers with solar panels, so it stops the evaporation and generates energy. So these are little things which had tremendous value, which many people don't see, even the best planners don't think of. So I think he's an extremely intelligent planner. He knows what he wants to do, and he demonstrates again in action, not just by saying it. So I came back very impressed. I came back very inspired.
Okay.
So he still continues to inspire me, and I think we should have this kind of leadership if we have to become a large economy, we have to become a powerful economy. I think the identity of a nation is very important. So powerful and strong and decisive leadership is something Bharat needs. I want to use the word India, Bharat needs.
Sure. You know, what was again like an insight for me and takeaways for me is, one is, as you said, having a clear goal. So he knows that we want to be a 5 trillion economy, a 10 trillion economy. So unless you don't have that goal, where do you go? So, you know, again, for the youngsters to understand, sit with themselves and think, what is my goal? Where do I want to go? The second is, once you have that goal in mind, to be ahead of the curve. So think 10 years, 15 years down the line. Try and keep yourself updated.
Correct.
A very interesting, insight was how he knew more than 20-year-olds in terms of technology.
He was ahead of
being ahead of the curve, thinking down the line, and then being powerful, decisive, and that conviction within yourself.
Absolutely.
I think these three things would be something that I would take away from what you just shared.
Yeah, you were dissecting it well. I mean, you're taking the key points. Good.
Thank you. And that brings me to another interesting chapter. You have so many interesting chapters. It's like so much fun genuinely having this conversation.
It's good fun talking to you. I'm also getting an opportunity to express myself.
Thank you.
It's good. Sorry.
And it brings me to a very interesting chapter of your life, which is politics. And something that for me, genuinely,
I wouldn't say interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, go on.
For me as a viewer, as a host, what I feel genuinely, and I'm not saying this because you're here, but I would personally love to see someone like you be in politics, because I genuinely feel an empathy for the people.
Right.
I see a vision, I see a goal. The science, the scientific geek in you.
Right.
I think that is something that the country needs. Plus, you have such great knowledge of education, healthcare. So genuinely, that's just something that I wanted to share.
Sure.
But having said that, you did fight the 2014 elections. Those were the Lok Sabha elections that you fought?
MLA.
MLA elections. Okay. What was the experience like at that point? What made you decide to get into...
I would love myself to be in politics. You just mentioned that you would love me too. I would also love myself. But I think that time was different. I was younger, and I had different ambitions that time. And I'm slightly older now. I have different ambitions now. So I think even with age, your ambitions change. So my burning desire was always to work for the development of our nation. And I thought, you're intelligent, you have some ideas, or even if you're not, you could do something good just by the mere fact that you want to affect change. So every leader who wants to affect change and wants to do good should and must be in politics.
Okay.
That's very important. So I had this desire since a very young age, that instead of criticizing a system, I always used to say politicians don't do this, and policy makers this, blah, blah, blah. Every living room conversation also, we are criticizing all our policy makers and how governments don't do this. So be the change that you want to be. So be in the system and affect that change. So that's what I really wanted to do. And that's the reason why I got into that area.
Okay.
And I genuinely felt that I could make a change, because I had great plans for the area that I contested in. I got some international planners to do some town planning. We mapped the businesses in those areas and what kind of infrastructure to create, and it would have been a tremendous economic engine which would have got growth and prosperity to that entire section. Yeah. So of course people do their progress and development. I'm not saying there's no progress and development, but I had a different vision. So we had Swiss architects coming in, we had Indian urban planners, and it was a think tank which was really thinking. So I was thinking of the development, I was not thinking of elections, because I said if I have such a great agenda, then why will people not elect me? Because I'm really working for the development of the place. But I lost miserably. I just didn't lose, I lost miserably. So that was my experience with electoral politics, because electoral politics is very different to opposed to sitting in a chair and planning, and you have to be at the ground level, you need to know the pulse of the people. So that was my learning experience, big learning experience. So it was a big setback as well.
Okay.
So although it was going against the tide, it was very difficult to win in that area.
Sure.
But nevertheless, I thought we could affect change, but that didn't happen. So politics is not an easy game. But rather than criticizing the system, you be in the system. Okay. Because I believe that nobody has a right to sort of criticize a politician if you voted him in. Because you are the one who votes him in, you are the one who makes him powerful, you are the one who puts him in his chair, and then you say he's not doing a good job. So it's a sort of a hypocritical approach to what people also think. I think then, and young people should be geared up for this.
Yes.
I don't have the age now to sort of really jump into it, because I'm content with what I'm doing and I don't want to now get involved with politics. And but young people should make it a passion to enter politics, because that's the age where they can do things.
Absolutely.
That burning desire is there. They have the energy, they have the stamina. Stamina is very important, because as a young man, you can do many more things what you couldn't do otherwise when you're a little aged. So they should enter politics, because without affecting politics, you will not be able to affect India, Bharat. So young people in more numbers should get involved with politics. And my only saying is, don't criticize people, rather be the change that you want to do. Yeah, otherwise, bar hum khali we just keep telling ye aisa nahi, wo waisa nahi. So that negative mindset has to go, because it's very easy to criticize someone. But the person who's sitting in the chair, the complexities that he goes through, the decisions that he has to make, he has to take a large number of people into mind. It cannot be that you please everyone. Like the society that we are currently in, or I'm currently in. Not everyone is pleased with the decisions you take, or in an organization, not every team member is happy with what you do. In your own home, your wife and children may disagree with your views. So you're talking of a nation, or you're talking of a constituency. So it's impossible to sort of please everyone. You have to just endeavor to. So rather than criticizing a system, be in the system and affect that change. And being the youth, because you all are thinking very differently, you all have modern thoughts. So there's a definite need for all the youngsters to get, but politics should be a full-time profession.
Okay.
It should not be a part-time occupation. It should be a full-time occupation, full-time profession, because you're working for the development of your constituency. It's not some business that you're getting into and that you will do it part-time. So I think serious politicians need to be in the system. There are many who dedicate their lives to the country, their commitment. But that mindset should be in that particular individual, that I'm coming here to effect change and not to become a minister or a MLA or a MP or a Rajya Sabha nominee. The desire should be to serve people at large. So वो सेवा भावना होनी चाहिए. So the seva bhavana, once it develops, then automatically you can create change. So I'm firmly of the opinion that politics should be a full-time occupation and profession, not a part-time occupation.
Okay. One thing that I would want to ask is, because I've had these conversations with youngsters, and I'm also a firm believer in the fact that it should be an option for a lot of youngsters, because ultimately we are the people who are going to, a few years down the line, be a part of the nation.
So this said, often in speeches, I'm interrupting you.
No problem.
You are the future of the country. In every speech, somebody will inspire you. You are the future of the country. I was the future of the country a few years back, but now I am now. So don't look at the past, don't look at the future, look at the now.
Sure.
Seize the now. I think it's very important.
Sure.
So the moment you say, in the future I will do this, the future is already here. Okay. I'm already here, because I heard someone say you are the future of the country, and that inspired me. I'm not saying it doesn't inspire you. But we should do away with this mindset that we were great in the past and we'll be great in the future. We have to be great today.
Great today.
Yeah.
Be
So
here.
seize the moment, whether you're 20 years old, you're 40 years old, you're 80 years old, seize the moment today. It's not about the past, present or future. It's only about the present.
Okay.
It's only about the present. So do everything today. Don't delay anything.
Seize the moment, get in it now.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, absolutely. Please.
Yeah.
Feel free to share your thoughts as and when they come.
Yeah.
But, seizing the moment, and that's what you're trying to drive through this point is that we are here, we are now, we need to seize the moment, because a lot of times, a lot of time is also lost, and we can always have these conversations ki past mein ye tha, future mein hai, but abhi, this is the time that we have. Now in this, I genuinely wanted to ask you, because one, I think, obstacle that at least I have heard from all the youngsters out there who want to take this up is that when they share this with their families, one constant feedback that they keep getting is politics is too dark, right? कि मत घुसो इसमें तो बहुत ही bad things can happen, this can happen, that can happen. It's a dark space. You have observed it closely. How true or untrue is it? Can it be an option for a youngster today to get into politics?
Oh, definitely, but you're asking me like I'm an
No,
expert on
from
politics.
your
My expertise is more education
I'm
and
sure. We'll get into that as
healthcare.
well,
But no, it's not necessarily. No, it's not. I think you just need to know how to be in the system, and till you keep calling it a dark space, it will remain a dark space. But when are you going to affect the change for clean, pure sort of service to the nation? And that only the youth can do, because they come with a non-corrupt mind. They don't come with an agenda. They come with a clean slate. And that, I think the youth can give a tremendous contribution to the nation. So they don't come with any baggage. So why should they try to emulate someone or copy a particular way someone did something? Of course, you learn from best practices, but don't learn from bad practices. I'll just put it in a simple and a clear manner. So youngsters have to carve their own destiny.
Okay.
And they have to be, because politics encompasses every part of your being, every part, whether it's business, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare. It's your basic living, the taxes you pay. Everything is in the hand of politics.
Sure.
Or the government takes charge. So I think youngsters need to come more and more into this space.
Okay.
But nation-loving, people-loving, kind people, those are the kind of people you want to see in politics, who want to affect change. So I would put a nota bene. So you will have a lot of intelligent people who are only committed to themselves. So you have to keep yourself aside and dedicate your life for the development of people.
Sure.
And maybe you could have some sort of a benchmark that these are the qualities that you need to be, when you enter politics, and self-evaluate whether I'm capable of doing such kind of things. Because it starts with a pure thought, it starts with an intention to do good things, but you should be steadfast and keep continuing doing a good work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll just summarize this whole politics conversation with this takeaway, at least for the youngsters, is that it is an option, it should be an option, it is in the now. If we keep calling it a dark space, it will always remain a dark space. And if there is ever a time, it is now, and we can seize that and we can get into it. And while getting into it, keep in mind that there should be this vision of people serving people and really building the nation. I'd like to sort of just summarize that little conversation with that takeaway, at least for me, what I took away from your perspective. Now coming back to your core expertise, which is education and now also healthcare. So first, I would love to deep dive into education, where, today the Ajeenkya Patil University, I was just, doing my research, and I found out that there are so many different schools that you have, whether it's engineering, school of management, school of liberal arts, there is filmmaking, there's so many diverse subjects that, you all teach. From your perspective, how do you look at Indian education today? And what is the future of Indian education?
So, Indian education today is degree churning institutions, which really give degrees to the students who pay their fees and go out. So, it's basically from the chalkboard to the notebook on the desk. It's not really a sort of a bridge between knowledge and understanding. And I think that needs to change drastically.
Okay.
So, because what happens, parents aspire for their children to become a doctor, an engineer, and once they get a degree, they look for jobs. Some want to become entrepreneurs, they create their own industry. or whatever their aspirations are. But one is, of course, when you spend on education, your first option is to recover that money, because that's how you're brought up, that I've spent so much on my education, that's the money I need to recover. So education itself has to become very affordable. That's a difficult question to answer as an educationist, because education is expensive. You need resources that you need to pay well. You need to create infrastructure that you need to spend money on. So it's a sort of a difficult situation to balance. So, and governments do offer a lot of, like, there's the Samaj Kalyan, which gives fees to the people who can't afford it. So there are a lot of schemes of the government also which makes education affordable to certain classes of our society. And I think those should be encouraged. So looking at the education system, again, I spoke at the initial discussion that the British system and the Indian education. So now in the new education policy, a lot of changes have been affected. So those are streamlining a lot of the way education is being taught in our country. So over a period of, I would imagine, 15 to 20 years, we'll see a radical shift in the way how educational institutes are offering this education to the masses. Because a lot of things that were missing have been plugged in, a lot of things have been incorporated. The Indian system of teaching is also now being included. Okay. So things like yoga, the study of our scriptures, spirituality, all these kinds of concepts, astronomy, astrology, these are all slowly being introduced in our system, and they should be, rightfully. Okay. Because what was considered once superstitious is really super science. And so you will see a shift in 15-20 years. Okay. And of course, with AI, VR, AR, education is going to change very drastically. Okay. So it will be available to all. What I say is, like, the cost of education will go down, because if you could reach people to different parts of the world without the need to create infrastructure on a virtual reality headset. So we've digitized a lot of our IP on AR and VR. Okay. So we are prepared for the digital revolution that's coming. But eventually, I don't think degrees will be important. You may not need to become an engineer, you may not need to become a doctor. I think it's your skills that will matter. So it's not necessarily that an engineer will get the job of an engineer. If, say, he takes a 3-month program in a university and he's good enough for the industry will employ him for that particular. So someone is good, say, in just balance sheets. So he'll have knowledge of balance sheet, he can handle the balance sheet. He doesn't need to be a chartered accountant or a degree, sort of a BCom graduate, to get a job. Sure. And industry will start that acceptance, because as long as the job is done, what is the degree for? So we're at the crossroads now. So education will change, and we've always believed in the T-shaped professionals. So T-shaped professionals is the top of the T, where you're an expert in marketing, finance. Not an expert, but you have an understanding of all the sectors of your industry. Say you're in an industry. The finance guy knows only finance. Sure. The marketing guy knows only marketing. The HR guy knows only HR. But on top of the T, that individual have an understanding of everything. And the bottom of the T is your deep expertise in that particular subject. Right. If at all you want it. Okay. But the guys on top of the spectrum will be able to adjust anyway. Okay. So that's the kind of education that will evolve. So it will be more liberal arts, more sort of understanding, human sort of interaction. That's the kind of, and jobs also changing. We are in industry 4 now. So jobs also changing. So the jobs of yesterday will not be the jobs of the future. Okay. So you have a lot of tech jobs. AI is now coming into our lives. So everything is changing very dynamically. So even universities will become sort of meeting centers rather than learning centers. Okay. They'll become knowledge centers where students can just come together, chill out, if you say, rather than actually going through a classroom sort of a mechanism. Sure. Because they might have classes at home, they may have blended learning. I honestly believe that a degree should be partially done, like a majority of it on the industry floor. Okay. And only partially at the campus. So for engineer, say automobile engineer, we are creating 70% of his time should be in the automobile factory rather than at the campus. Absolutely. And 30% should just only be to give him the skills needed. But he's essentially learning on the shop floor. So if he's learning on the shop floor, what better learning to do than at the industry itself?
Absolutely.
So these permutation combinations will come. The law today doesn't provide this. The law mandates permanent attendance, minimum attendance, enrollments. So all these rigid rules need to go.
Sure.
So certainly that will change. And even if the law doesn't permit tomorrow, if someone just starts classes which will offer these skills, nobody will come to colleges and universities. I mean, this is a very strong statement I'm making.
Absolutely.
Because eventually it's the job that matters and is the money that you earn, your bread and butter. If you get the skills to do that, then why will you want a degree or go into a rigid system which really doesn't prepare you for the industry? Because even we have now software engineers who go into the software industry, they need 6 months training program before they can work into the system. It's not like on day one he'll sit and okay, I'm a champ here and I can manage. The engineer has to go through an engineering program before he understands. So they're relearning their skills in the sector they go. Whether it's the MBA who goes into the banking sector, he'll be an intern there. So why should he be an intern? He should come straight as a manager when he graduates. If he's already 2 years in the banking sector, his first job will be, okay, I'm a manager or I'm a senior head or whatever. So I think very differently when it comes to education. In fact, I even oppose examinations.
Okay.
Because examinations is about mugging up and essentially digesting the data in your, like sort of you're just not learning anything, but essentially just mugging everything. So if a child can open the book, read that particular topic and then give his exam and give the correct answer, then obviously he knows what the subject is. He's gone to that particular page and he has understood what that subject is. So examinations also tremendous pressure on the students, because tell me, you went to school, do you remember some of the things that were taught to you in school, and how are they applicable in today's life? So the application of that is also important. So education has to take a completely different turn. So this is not the education that we should be giving. It's almost like the Pink Floyd song, Another Brick in the Wall. It's just on and on and on. You're going 9 to 5, and industry is changing. I mean, we learned to work from home. COVID changed us. Industries are coming up with all innovative practices on how to work, and we are tolerating people who, as long as they give output, it doesn't matter whether they're punching in their attendance or no. Otherwise, things like attendance, and it's crazy. I just don't understand the need for it. If the child can come to the exam and pass, then why should you trouble him with so many burdens? And then talking about mental health, people are going through trauma. So if you traumatize the child at that early stage, these are his happy years. When a child comes in school, he comes very innocent. These are his happy years. He has to keep smiling till he graduates. But by the time he graduates, he's so stressed because his parents are paying the fees. They are worried about how they'll get the money. Then he's stressed about getting a job. He's stressed about paying back the bank loan. He's stressed about passing his exams. He's stressed about what parents will think. He's stressed about what colleges other friends are getting into. There's so much peer pressure. So this peer pressure, even sports events, who comes first gets the medal, who comes second. So we've been ingrained in a system where superiority and inferiority is ingrained. And that should not be the case. So you need a complete different thought, and that's where our Indian traditions come in. There was no sense of killing each other for competition. It was about upliftment of your knowledge.
Okay.
And I think our Indian system will slowly get there, so we can really be a beacon of hope to the world as far as our education system is concerned. So the governments need to take active interest in this. Private players can do only very little. They can only participate in that process. But a complete policy shift in the way education is thought about. So, and that has to happen, and it will happen. Because with technology, it will happen. So I can sit today and take a course from Harvard. I can take a course from Wharton just sitting in India. I couldn't do that a couple of years ago. So after 10 years, imagine the possibilities. So I can go on about this topic.
No, but it's really so fascinating, and I'm just mentally drawing up this picture of let's keep aside the rules and regulations for now, and let's just, like a thought experiment, this ideal sort of a education system,
Right.
And from your perspective, obviously,
Right.
But it's just so interesting for me to listen to it, because I personally would love to be in this education system where we're not going after a degree.
Yeah.
We're going after skills.
Correct.
we're not learning it in a theoretical way, but we're learning it in a practical way.
Absolutely.
So we are going to the real place where the
Right.
work happens. You know, we are getting industry training.
Correct.
We don't need to be bound by all the rules and regulations.
There's just too many rules.
Absolutely. And each student or each individual can get the freedom to, you know, you don't, as you said, you don't need to only be an engineer. Matlab, ek degree of engineering is something that you might not even want. You can have that base level understanding of so many different things, and you can fit into any occupation or any role that you want to play in the future. Where we as students,
Right.
all of us have gone through the whole system, and हमने front end से देखा है कि okay, teachers आते हैं, पढ़ाते हैं, exams होते हैं, but I'm sure there's so much that goes on in the back end of running an institution so large. You know, there's a principal, there's a chancellor, there's a pro-chancellor, there is sort of your trustees, there's so many sort of rules and regulations. I'm very fascinated to know what the back end is like. What is the, I mean, so much pressure, challenges, systems, how do you sort of deal with it?
So the back end is fascinating.
Okay.
I think because there are so many players working quietly in the background, and the interface is only the teacher. And so the back end is extremely important because there's a lot of planning, like curriculum activities, ideating, implementation of that, syllabus planning, timetables, use of classrooms, energy management. There's so much that goes into the campus, you know, cleanliness, the MAP, you know, all the periphery stuff. So there's a lot of background activity going on. Of course, the leadership team is very important because the leadership team is essentially what guides the teams under them. So the vice chancellor would be the driving vision behind the university.
Okay.
Because he would ideate, he would make a strategy plan, and he would really present to the board that where the university should be in the next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years. So the selection of the vice chancellor is very important.
Okay.
And the autonomy you give to the vice chancellor is also very important because you can have the best people, but he may not be in an autonomous organization where he's controlled by the board or decisions are not being allowed to be taken. And that happens in Indian systems. So autonomy of a vice chancellor is very important, provided you select the right leader.
Okay.
But you select the wrong leader with an autonomous system, that may create problems for you. And that autonomy should further go to the other leaders as well, whether it's the principals under them, whether it's the heads under them, whether it's the deans under them. So at every level, there should be autonomy. And that autonomy can only bring about a democratic system where an educational system will flourish.
Okay.
Because the thought should free flow. The thought should not be ingrained in a cube where it's only driven by a particular individual or a particular way how it is. As long as it's working for the development of the children. I feel the stakeholders in this case are students. So every individual in the organization should think about the goodwill of the child who he or she is catering to. So that's the most important aspect. It's not even the university, it's not even the organization. I think it's the real quality or the success of a university is measured by the success of its students on how they perceive the institute to be or how they're treated when they are graduating. So if every stakeholder thinks like that, then an organization really can succeed.
Okay.
And so lot goes into the background. So human resources is a very important part of understanding how to run an organization.
Okay.
It's not purely SOPs. Those of course exist because you have to comply and you have to run it. But end of the day, one teacher might be liked by some students and one may be disliked. So that should not be the case. If you're in the teaching profession, every child should like you, love you. Because essentially that's your job. In fact, you outsource, your parents have outsourced your children to you for those 5 or 10 hours. And how a mother loves unconditionally a child, that's how a teacher or a university should love their students who run that system. So it's very important that a job is just not a job, but it's something that you're shaping, you're creating. जो बोलते हैं ना आप किसको कोणाला तरी घडवताय तुम्ही मराठीत बोलता, means you're literally making someone. So those are very important parts of your upbringing. So the teacher has a very important role to play. So there's tremendous pressure on the teacher because how the child will shape up in the future depends very much on the teacher. And today the teachers have become more aware. Maybe they were not aware a couple of years ago, but because of the sensitivity today, because of so much information available, the actions that they do today can have impact on the child's future tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So whether it's encouraging a child or whether it's traumatizing a child, there can be all sorts of effects it has on the child. So essentially the teaching role is, I feel, one of the most critical aspects of our functioning.
Okay.
So teachers have to be very focused on how the experience of a child is. And we as a management have to be very focused on how the teachers feel about us. Because essentially if the teachers are happy, then the children are happy. Wow. So we have to care about the well-being of how they are, and the management should be very sensitive and not just goal-oriented in terms of, again I say, the attendance, ye karna. As long as the child succeeds, his department is giving good results, then what mechanisms he uses is what he does so that the child succeeds. So you should encourage that kind of behavior, and as a management, we would like to take care of our stakeholders in that kind. Obviously, we go to the student level as how the child feels about, but essentially, I think it's the teachers which is directly interacting with the students. And my counsel to my vice chancellor and my team would be that you take care of your teachers and you take care of your team, and they'll take care of your children. So lots goes into the background, and they're very hardworking, they're very committed, because teachers essentially make billionaires, teachers make millionaires, teachers make doctors, teachers make engineers, and they earn crores and crores, but teachers still earn in thousands. Yes. Or lakhs. If you're very good, maybe lakhs, but still their salaries can't be compared to what the industry pays. So look at the structure we have in society. The people who create, the people who get more salaries are not getting the salaries that are being created by them.
That's really...
So it's ridiculous. So essentially they should be paid more than the corporate titans.
Yes.
But the system doesn't allow it because we can't generate enough, because education has to be affordable. So that's where the industry interface is necessary. So if there is some industry interface where there are grants coming in from the industry, that's happening in the US. Buildings are sponsored by corporations and infrastructure is sponsored by them. So the cost of education can come down, the teachers can be paid well. But here you can recover only through fees, and then the fees, then the children are burdened. So it's a difficult situation to balance, but teachers, I believe, should have salaries at par with corporate structures.
Something that I take away from this discussion is that there is a gap, because unfortunately today institutions have to rely on fees to cover the cost. Hence, the teachers have to be paid at a certain scale, because you can't even overburden the fee structure, because then that obviously becomes a big challenge in terms of providing education to the masses. So one learning that we could possibly take from the US or the Western side is where institutions, companies, organizations can have grants, so that educational institutes don't have to rely only on fees in order to function well. And therefore the bridge can be gapped, where the teachers can also be paid well. At the same time, the burden on the students is also not that large.
Absolutely.
And I think if that happens, I think that will really help in so many ways, because as you said today, for how many people is it really an option to become a teacher? कौन सोचता है आज के time में? But if there are proper incentives, if the pay scale improves, if sort of the whole structure improves, I'm sure it can change, and I hope that it changes soon.
So if the government can take it up, that'll be something.
Absolutely. Now we've discussed education, we discussed politics a little bit, but a huge part of your life now going forward is the whole foray into healthcare, and you all are building hospitals all across national and international. Can you take us through that journey? Why did you decide to get into healthcare? What were the insights, and what is your vision going forward?
So I think healthcare was not a planned strategy, because we have our medical school. So since these establishment, a medical school is required, medical hospital is required for a medical school. So we gained experience to establish these hospitals, and last 20-25 years we've had some learnings out of these experiences, because when you associate a hospital to a medical college, there's a certain mass that comes to the hospital that has to be treated. And good doctors can only be created if they have access to excellent clinical material. In this case, patients. So the vast length and breadth of Bharat, there are lot of patients who come, different sorts of diseases, different sorts of accident victims, different cases. So the exposure that Indian students get to clinical material is by far the best you can have anywhere in the world. Unless you're in some other part where similar sort of demography is there, but India offers one of the best sort of clinical facilities to its students who are training. So because of that, we learned from our experience that we are able to treat a large number of patients at a limited cost, because the hospitals were attached to medical colleges. We were not looking at them as profit centers.
Sure.
So again, the cost of these hospitals was also being recovered from the students.
Okay.
So the fees as a consequence was very high. And the hospitals can be made profitable, provided you understand how they work. Essentially, they were there because there's a requirement. Ideally, I would want the government policy to be that you could attach yourself to any hospital and train your students there. So if say I had a medical college in Navi Mumbai, I should be allowed to train at Jaslok Hospital or a Leelavati, or because all these hospitals essentially have the infrastructure.
Right.
But the regulation doesn't permit it.
Achha,
So you have to establish your own hospital within a 10 sort of a kilometer radius in a 10-acre land parcel. So there are many rules and regulations. So I feel we can be the knowledge providers of the world if certain regulations are tweaked, but the entry barrier is very high. And fair enough, because it's a sector which sort of requires tremendous skills, and because you're dealing with the lives of people, so it has to be regulated.
Sure.
And the government is also taking a very proactive stand in establishing hospitals and medical colleges.
Okay.
So that's also increasing. So what we realize is that you can run hospitals profitably at a low cost. So why not make this into a business center, whereby we'll establish hospitals and not attached to medical colleges, but we'll offer the same treatment that we're offering to our patients, which are very affordable. So there are CGHS rates, which the government, there are schemes, the Prime Minister's scheme is there for treatment, insurance schemes. So there's a complete sector which can't afford to go into the top hospitals.
Okay.
Because what happens is either they don't have access to these hospitals because of lack of facilities, or because they don't have the money to get themselves treated. So there is a space for economical hospitals, no frills hospitals.
Okay.
Where what we want to do is, if you have an insurance scheme, you'll be eligible to enter the hospital. Or if you're covered in one of these government schemes, you'll be eligible to come. So that's the sector that we want to target.
Okay.
But the treatment that we'll offer will be like a 5-star hospital. There'll be no compromise on the treatment that we give. Now what happens is, first time when a person comes to the hospital, first thing, do your blood test, do your x-rays, do your MRIs, do this, do that, and as a consequence, his bill piles up, and the hospital naturally is trying to make money because you want to get your revenue up. But we are now developing algorithms where we'll say that, suppose you come in for a particular process, this is your charge. It will be 3 lakh rupees will be your charge, or 2 lakh rupees, whatever that particular treatment you want to treat. And that will be your final bill. In that, there'll be 10 number of blood tests, 5 number of blood tests, or number of x-rays. It will be like a package. So the patient who comes in will know that at the end of the treatment, how much is my cost. Because when the patient comes in, you tell him that the operation is going to cost you 25,000, but his bill goes to 2.5 lakhs. So there's a huge gap between understanding what, and you're in an emergency, you're desperate to get into hospital, so you don't really bother. But when the burden of the bill hits on you, that by itself can again cause a lot of anxiety and stress. So we want to come up with a system where the cost of the treatment is fixed.
Okay.
And we can come up with that because we have now vast experience in treating thousands of patients every day. So we know the turnover, we know the use of equipment, the use of materials, whether it's bandages, whether it's injections, whether it's medicines. So we'll work accordingly with the pharmacies, we'll work accordingly with the diagnostic centers. So this is the basic concept of starting these hospitals. And again, affordability, because our group has always been focused on the greater good, like I keep saying. So you can give affordable healthcare treatment at a very good cost and still make your hospital profitable, provided you know the science behind running those hospitals. And I think those algorithms have now been put in place because of our experience. And computerization is also greatly helping. With AI now we're able to tweak in our systems of how much pilferage is happening, or how much misuse is happening. See, a doctor can come and prescribe something. The nurse, instead of prescribing one bandage, will prescribe 2 bandages. But if your computer is talking and discussing, immediately there'll be a flag to the senior manager that because we are offering a package price of 3, this is going above and beyond. So there'll be a certain treatment that cost may be high, where we may incur a loss, but overall we'll make a profit, so it will balance out the budget. So it's a combination of technology, best practices, and our experience. So the hospitals we are targeting, we are not targeting the affluent class.
Okay.
We are targeting the mass market, because these are the people who really need good health care and they're not available to them. The other option is government hospitals. So while government hospitals are upgrading, the facilities provided are still not up to the mark of private hospitals. So here is a private hospital with infrastructure of a private world-class hospital, but treatments at government rates.
And you also bring in technology, which is, I think, a key factor there.
Very much.
Where, so many gaps with humans bring in so many gaps that
So
technology
we didn't have access to this data, say 5 years ago.
Sure.
So only now we have access to this data.
Sure.
Yeah, go on.
No, absolutely. So what I'm trying to get to is that today, whenever anyone is thinking of getting into a space, technology can be such a huge advantage that we should sort of use and try and incorporate. Because I think that is something that I took away, where you have learning, experience,
It's a game
and now
changer.
technology. And that is game changing. And
completely.
hence you are able to fill in that gap where people can afford this and they can get the best service.
Sure. Yeah.
Summarizing so many different things, where we spoke about politics, we spoke about spirituality, we spoke about a little bit of Indian educational history, the future of education in India, healthcare and sort of affordable.
We covered quite a few topics.
Just to summarize this, going forward, what next for you? What is the next 10-year, 15-year vision that you have for yourself, for your group, or personally?
So personally, I would want a sense of satisfaction that, okay, I did my best, I tried my best, I did what I could. But I wouldn't be disappointed if there are some failures as well, because failures are part of your life, and there's not everything you can do. So you continue to do what you do. I get bored very easily, because I need to constantly do something. Perhaps that's a character disorder, but I need to constantly. So I was hoping to retire when I was 40. That's not happened. I'm hoping to retire when I'm 60, but that will also not happen. So, and I remember my father now, because he used to say, the day you die, you should retire. Wow. So you keep working till the end of your time, till how much you can do. And essentially, when you're able to do so much, God has given you an opportunity, then why waste it?
Absolutely.
And life is a journey, so you continue with that journey. But in terms of vision, mission, I think pretty satisfied with what we've done. But the overall, again, vision remains of how to make this affordable, how to give it to everyone, because it's my father's dream. And that's something that's ingrained in my DNA. It's ingrained in the entire family. Everyone thinks about that. So eventually a time will come, hopefully in my lifetime, where we'll see that, people will say, yeah, these people made a difference. They made an impact. They practiced what they preach, and they could do what they said. So we'll continue to work on that path. And a few good years I have, so I'll continue to do some solid projects. But day-to-day management, I've divested myself already.
Okay.
I only get involved in the infrastructure projects now.
Okay.
And just work for the greater good, meditate, and spend some good times with the family. So
absolutely, and I wish you all the best for the future. I think what I'd like to say is that I think a lot of us do see so much that is already being done for the affordable, whether it's affordable education and now in the foray of affordable hospitals. And I really, sort of from the bottom of my heart, wish that this keeps on growing so that more people are benefited. And your father's dream that you're taking forward as a legacy continues to expand and grow. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure having you.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.